Hello again. Hope you're all remaining sane in these trying times. No one said that this adventure would be easy. We're trying to find the chosen one, of course. I have some interesting news, though, this week to possibly get your minds off the craziness for a bit. As I was continuing to work through the code in these files, I stumbled upon something I didn't expect. Information from a place I had not been to here in the Old Kingdom. I traced the signal to what seemed like a wall, only to find it was actually a doorway to a secret room. I was able to hack into the security protocols and force the room to open. Inside was a secret room with official seals of a group called the Shadow Brigade. This is the first time this group has come up, and with such a name, my eyes obviously lit up. I want to know more, and I think we all need to know a little bit more about what this Shadow Brigade did. It seems like there are thousands of files, some from secret science labs, others from around the world, some from unknown places, that all exist inside the database in this room. But as I sifted through what was there, it was apparent that the files had not only been put behind massive security, but they had also been corrupted in a way I've never seen. Almost like it was from an otherworldly source. This room seems to be a potential key in our journey, perhaps with much needed info on what the shadows are and how we can fight them. Perhaps it even has the location of the green ball itself. I do not know, but what I do know is that I need to work on trying to recover some of this lost data and piece anything together with my other resource. And some of the most promising files seem to be audio files. Most of the names are hidden, but I have recovered one already. Dr. Constance Landry. All I know is that Constance is called the chief scientist for something called Project Peter Pan. Perhaps you can discern what this project name means, but I hope to continue to recover these seemingly important files very soon. Until then, we must applaud ourselves for making it past the halfway point of our season. There's still so much to be decided. Be patient, trust the process, and remember,
the challenges are only going to increase for all of us.
The world's essence slows, shadows spread from the pyramids to the oceans to the coasts. But behold the test, a smoking gun, a quest passed down for generations. A prophesized hero, the champion. In order to save everyone, thou must drink from the cup. 12 of us on this mission. What's next? 17 weeks to be the best. Injuries and buys, thou should have guessed. The waiver wire request was denied, but maybe a trade will provide an edge and a chance to be a legend. Fight for humanity, reach the goal. It's a quest for the green ball. Green It's a quest for the green It's a quest for the green Let's do this. Let's do this. It's a quest for the green
Welcome to the quest for the Green Bowl, the Shadows of Chaos. I'm your host, Anthony Oto, bringing you another episode of this fantasy football show with a twist. And it's amazing to think that the regular season is already halfway done for most fantasy leagues out there. In ours, one game separates 10 of us, with 1 2-5 team and 1 5-2 team as well. There have been numerous upsets this season, and this past week was no different. For many of us, next week will be very key in turning things around to either cementing ourselves as true contenders or falling away as pretenders. I will preview our league's matchups later, with my Great Superior Superb Owls hosting the next game of the week at the Great Superior Eye in a rivalry match. I'll also go through our league's first half of the season with our standings breakdown, surprises and disappointments from the first half, and the top players at each position, which should also translate to anyone's league. But first, I need to dive into the Week 7 results as parity continues to reign supreme. My Heart Will Go On of the Central Territory hosted the Siamese Dreamcats of the Western Territory at Steel Shores, and while My Heart Will Go On came in with a 58% chance to win, Monday Night Magic helped the Siamese Dreamcats get the upset on the road in a 117.58 to 117.46 win. That's right, a win by 0.08 points. Metcalf's 84-yard score on Monday was a big reason why, but it was a measly 13-yard gain by Callaway that actually clinched the win with just minutes to go. The Cats also had a huge performance by Jamar Chase, who had 201 yards in his score, collecting 6 bonus points, 1 for a 50-plus yard TD and another 5 for surpassing 200 receiving yards. Jackson also had a nice game with 88 rushing yards to go with 257 passing yards and a score. Pitts added 163 yards, and Connor also added a touchdown. My Heart Will Go On had a solid game with Rodgers, Adams, Swift, Williams, Hollywood Brown, and Ertz all scoring in double digits, but the lack of points in the flex hurt. Both teams are now 3-4 overall. Uncle Justy of the Western Territory hosted Remember the Titans of the Eastern Territory at Skyward Peaks. And of course, Remember the Titans entered this match with a mind-boggling 88.6% chance to win, and the computer did not lie here. Remember the Titans crushed Uncle Justy 137.54 to 44.78. Joe Burrow was a man possessed with 250-yard plus touchdown bonus scores and ended up with 400 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. Patterson added a score, and Kupp and Harris both had 2 touchdowns. The Patriots defense also dominated the Jets. Bridgewater had 2 TDs for Uncle Justy, but that is all that happened, with 8 players scoring under 6 points in his bye week hell. Uncle Justy falls to 4-3, and Remember the Titans moves to 3-4. The Central Territory's Great Superior Superb Owls traveled to the Western Territory to take on the Stellar Bitches at Misty Forest. And the Owls, my Owls, had a 60% chance to win, but the computers did not foresee the complete struggle of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense with such a great matchup on paper against Tennessee. That essentially was the difference, though the Owls uncharacteristically left points on the bench that could have still helped get that win. Matt Stafford had 3 touchdowns to help the Bitches in this low-scoring win, and Mike Evans went off for 3 TDs as well. Jacobs and Samuel both scored for the Owls, and Folk did well at the kicker position, but none of it was enough. The Stellar Bitches are now 4-3, and the Superb Owls dropped to 3-4 with the 3rd straight defeat. The Eastern Territory's Risky Business headed to the Western Territory to take on first place Galgal at the Golden Sands. Risky Business entered with a 59% chance to win, and due to Galgal's buys, it ended up being a blowout, with Risky Business winning 132.64 to 69.74. Tom Brady had his historic day with 4 touchdowns to get him over 600 in his career, and Kamara came back from his bye in a big way with 179 yards and a score. Scary Terry and Pittman both had over 100 yards and a touchdown as well. Booker also did okay with a score himself, and the Packers defense dominated Washington. For Galgal, touchdowns by Drake and Taylor were his highlights. Both teams moved to 4-3 overall. In an Eastern versus Central Territory first place matchup, Green Acres traveled to the Philosopher's Swamp to take on low-key Lebowski Thor. Green Acres came in with a 62% chance to win, but this one also came down to Monday night, and the Saints defense getting just enough in a 101.14 and 97.44 win. Tagovailoa had a nice game with 4 touchdowns, and Mixon added a score. One note here is that Green Acres had bye week hell, but he had 7 waiver pickups score 82.84 points. Lebowski Thor had a huge game for the Buccaneers defense with 5 forced turnovers and 4 sacks, and Murray had 3 scores as well. Gordon and Fournette also scored, but the waiver pickups weren't as kind to him. Green Acres is now the number 1 overall team in the league at 5-2, and Lebowski Thor falls to 4-3. And that brings us to
The game of the week!
which saw the Eastern Territory's Multiple Scoregasms host the Central Territory's Meow Master at the Gateway Islands. Multiple Scoregasms entered this matchup with a 65.4% chance to win, but as is usually the case, Meow Master somehow kept it close despite taking 2 zeros. In fact, there was a point on Sunday night during the Sunday night game that had these Scoregasms up by just a few points. In the end, however, Meow Master's luck ran out as the Scoregasms claimed the 105.6 to 89.54 win. There were some key swings throughout the whole matchup. One, Ryan Tannehill had 270 passing yards and a touchdown, and also added a rushing touchdown. And Derrick Henry was actually held to just 102 yards and a passing touchdown, no rushing touchdowns. Meow Master did have Jalen Hurts continue to be solid at quarterback, but Tannehill's 21 points did help cancel some of that out, which was one of the keys here. A 15-2 advantage at defense with the Scoregasms Arizona Cardinals defense outscoring the San Francisco 49ers defense on Meow Master's side. Also a big reason for this win. It helped offset Meow Master's advantage with DeAndre Hopkins getting a touchdown and 53 yards and Aaron Jones being held to just 39 yards, which was very surprising. Meow Master's key to the game, A.J. Brown did have his breakout game, like I said he would, 133 yards and a score. But the other key to the game on the other side, on the Multiple Scoregasm side, you had Eli Mitchell collecting 107 yards and a touchdown on the ground, which definitely helped. And then you can't forget Chris Godwin and Mike Gesicki. Godwin with 111 yards and a score, and Gesicki collecting 85 yards and a touchdown on National Tight Ends Day. And all of those points were needed. But overall, it was a nice comeback win for the Scoregasms, moving to 3-4 overall. Of course, dropped last week's game of the week, got a little revenge this week. Meow Master falls to 2-5, and the two-time defending champion is in trouble through the first half of our regular season. And of course, today I'm joined by our winner, the Multiple Scoregasms. What is going on? How glad are you that you can get the W this week, especially against one of your kind of rivals here, the team that seems to luck into wins all year?
I'm super excited. I needed that win anyway. So just the fact that it was game of the week made it a little bit better.
So I do have to say, you've been rolling with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback this season. He's had some decent games. He's had some tough, bad games for fantasy purposes. I mean, were you a little worried going into this matchup, especially with Derrick Henry on the other side, who was partly the reason why you lost last week's game of the week, vulturing all your touchdowns?
Yeah, and that was like exactly what I was thinking going into it. I was like, okay, like I expect that Henry's going to have a big game. You always do, but maybe. And then like the first touchdown they get, Derrick Henry passes it. Like I was like, no way. Like, how is this happening? Like now he's taking my guy's thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I saw that and was just like, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
That's what they all get for saying he can't win MVP unless he's quarterback, I guess.
Yeah. For fantasy purposes, he probably should be the number one pick every year at this point.
If I was number one, I would have picked him number one this year.
Yeah, I mean, he just gets all the carries. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And, sticking with running backs too, I have to say that you had sort of unexpected struggles this week with Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson. You must be pleased that Eli Mitchell stepped up, but obviously no one was really sure who gets carries on that offense, and it looked like he's the number one guy there, so that's got to be good. but you also had James Robinson and a bye. So, I mean, were you worried going into the Sunday night game, knowing that you really needed Mitchell to step up after your other running backs kind of faltered a little bit?
Yeah, I was. Although when I saw it was raining, I was like, perfect. And I mean, at the beginning of the year, like everybody was hyped on Sermon, saying Sermon's gonna be the man. But I ended up taking Mitchell when Sermon was questionable, and I was like, all right, well, we'll just like see what happens. Like I have space for him, so let's just do it. Having James Robinson gone though was a little bit rough because I don't think if Robinson was gone this week, I would have played Gibson because I was really worried about him and everybody kept talking about it. So yeah, but I mean, I was so happy this year. I think this is the first year in like 2 years that I've had a good running back for. So having that makes me feel better.
I do want to say too, obviously Meow Master and Gal until recently when he finally kind of woke up and started to coach, they kind of lucked into some wins throughout the last couple of years by not coaching, maybe catching up finally with Meow Master at 2-5, but obviously it's just ridiculous how 5 players can score 100 points on those teams sometimes. And you need to take advantage when they have those zeros. Otherwise you lose if your guys in those spots didn't do good. Your flex and tight end combined for 30.2 points. And those were the 2 zeros Meow Master, took. And even if Meow Master coached, you still would have won by percentage points. I think it was like 15.8 points were on her bench. But you would have been a lot more scared if that happened.
I was already scared. Like losing to somebody who doesn't have 2 players in is pretty rough.
Yeah, it's happened to me multiple times to Meow Master, of course. But I mean, getting the win against Meow Master after that, I'm sure in your memory, you got the 2016 championship in your memory. How nice is it to maybe get a little bit of revenge there?
It's so great. It's gonna be there forever for me. And like Meow Master probably doesn't even know this, but she picked up the tight end that I wanted, like just because our seating, like she got him first.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that she beat me, because it was like 2.7 points or something.
Yeah.
So it's always a little bit more salty in my mind.
Yeah, and that same tight end, Clay, he's the reason why I also lost in the semifinals. Upset. I was the top seed that year. Didn't coach all year until that game.
Yep.
And the rest is history, unfortunately. Obviously I started 3-1. Now I'm 3-4. You started a little rough, and now you're 3-4, and other teams are kind of all there. I believe 10 of us, a game separates us all. So that the final playoff spots are probably going to come down to the last few games. So, I mean, are you happy with where you are right now, especially with maybe a little bit of a slow start? Or do you wish that maybe you had a couple more wins behind you?
I don't know, because the last 2 years I was number 1 seed like the entire year, and then I lost first round of the playoffs. So maybe it's just better to like scrap your way up to the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels good to sit pretty, but then you lose. You're like, well, that was all for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You want to win at the right time. You don't want to start and then lose. That's why I'm not too worried yet. I'm very upset that I've lost 3 straight, but I'm surviving. So I do want to get to our lore here. You play at the Gateway Islands and are actually better at home based on the record so far than on the road. But overall, what are your thoughts on the Gateway Islands and the overall theme this season? Do you think you're worthy enough to stop the shadows?
You don't have to be worried about the shadows when you're the light. Come on. I do like my home base, though. The story behind it was great. I was like, yeah, that seems like where I belong. So, yeah. And then last week when you were like, oh, are you, thinking that he's like the good guy or the bad guy? Like, I didn't even have thought that he was the bad guy until you said that. So now you have me all curious.
Yeah. I mean,
need to know more.
There's a lot going on, a lot of mysterious things happening with our mysterious stranger. Of course, even I don't know where he's going half the time. So
I love it.
Well, thanks for being on the show. Of course, you may have another shot weeks 13 and 14, depending on standings, as those game of the weeks will happen depending on what's going on. They're still to be announced. And of course, if you make the playoffs, I hope to have all the playoff teams on for those shows. So you guys could all trash talk each other. Hopefully me trash talking people as well. And we play week 11. So I look forward to that as well. You have to come visit me at the Great Superior Eye, which we will learn about later in this show, actually. So as I host the game of the week this week.
Hey, I'm from the UP. I'm very familiar with Lake Superior, so we're good.
Also, that could be big. It could be an elimination game the way we're going. So
yeah. That's true. I just hope to be good by then.
I hope so too. Best case scenario, it's for tiebreaker scenarios for like seeding in the playoffs. We're already in at that point or something.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Perfect.
So thanks again to the Multiple Scoregasms for joining me this week. And next, I will break down the first half of the season in this league, including the top players at each position, which can translate to all leagues. So definitely stay tuned. So here we are, 7 weeks in, the halfway point in our 14-game regular season, as one game was added after the NFL schedule expanded. Things are a little different from these initial power rankings that came out before episode 1. First, let's break down the standings as they are. In the Central Territory, Loki Lebowski Thor sits a game up at 4-3. The Great Superior Superb Owls are 3-4 after a tough 3-game losing streak, and My Heart Will Go On, which has changed the team name twice this season, is third at 3-4. Meow Master is last at 2-5, which is also last in the league overall. In the Western Territory, we have 3 teams at 4-3 overall. Galgal leads the division on a points tiebreaker with a 713 to 687 points advantage over second place Uncle Justy. The Stellar Bitches are third with 680 points. All 3 teams are 1-1 in games against each other, which is why points separates them. And not too far behind are the Siamese Dreamcats at 3-4 overall. In the Eastern Territory, Green Acres is first in the division and the league with a 5-2 record. Risky Business is next at 4-3, and the Multiple Scoregasms and Remember the Titans are both 3-4, with the Scoregasms ahead of Remember the Titans by head-to-head tiebreaker. Now I want to talk about 3 surprises and 3 disappointments in the first half of the season based on preseason computer projections. The surprises are pretty obvious here. We have Green Acres at 5-2, and while this is a team that has had success in the past, as Green Acres has been a very good team in our whole history, the computers were not kind early on, putting Green Acres tied for last in the league based on the projection. But Green Acres laughs at those notions with 4 straight wins to start the out-of-division schedule, putting them in prime position to get into the playoffs. Coaching has been huge, with streaming defenses and quarterbacks really working so far. And in the 5 wins, Green Acres has over 100 points. In the 2 losses, Green Acres has under 100 points, so there haven't been any easy games so far. Next up is the Stellar Bitches at 4-3 and having a playoff spot if the season ended today. The Bitches came into the season ranked 9th overall, but wins over defending champion Galgal, Risky Business, the Multiple Scoregasms, and the Superb Owls has the Bitches in good shape headed to the final 7 games of the regular season. The problem, of course, is that the Stellar Bitches have scored below 100 points in all but 1 game so far. The third surprise is actually our defending champion, Galgal. Galgal started the season tied for 7th overall, which isn't too bad, but he's now 4-3 and in first place in his division with the points tiebreaker. He's 2-0 against the Central Territory with wins over Lebowski Thor and the Superb Owls, which bodes well for future tiebreakers. There have been some coaching issues, but those seem to be behind him, at least in the last few weeks. And our 3 disappointments so far, they're not out of it, but they certainly don't like where they stand after high expectations coming into the year. One of those disappointments is the huge one. Meow Master, our 2-time defending champion, came in tied for first in the power rankings. Meow Master sits at 2-5 now and is in last place in the entire league, and coaching is a main reason why. Even below average coaching probably nets a few more wins, and now Meow Master is 2 games back of the final playoff spot with 7 games to go. Still time to turn it around, but coaching is a must in the second half, or this season will be a lost cause. Second, my great superior Superb Owls came in ranked 4th overall, and after a 3-1 start, I was looking like I was acknowledging those computer rankings, but 3 straight losses have my Owls sitting out of the playoffs if the season ended today with a 3-4 record. You know, injuries have hurt, but there have also been some underachieving players as well. Patrick Mahomes. While certainly in the race and the division title is still up for grabs, there's a lot to play for in the second half. But the first half was not so kind with the goal of being 5-2 through 7 games. Third, the Multiple Scoregasms, which came in with a 5th place overall ranking before the season started, now sitting at 3-4 and in 3rd place in the Eastern Territory. A win over Meow Master this past week was huge, but losses to Lebowski Thor, the Stellar Bitches, and Uncle Justy will not bode well in a potential tiebreaker. Again, 7 games is plenty of time to turn it around, but based on those preseason rankings, I am sure no one expected a 3-4 start for the Multiple Scoregasms. Now, I do want to add that the Siamese Dreamcats also sit at 3-4 overall and came in ranked 3rd coming into the league. But with several close losses, with the Cats scoring over 100 points in some of those big losses, while it's disappointing to start 3-4, the Cats certainly scored as many points as the computers expected, and maybe more. So I didn't actually include her here, but could be a disappointment as well. So now that we broke down the league a bit, let's look at the top players at each position through 7 weeks, and this could go for everyone. We start with the quarterback position. You got Tom Brady still at number 1 with 21 touchdowns, just 3 picks. That's very surprising. Not surprising with his pedigree, but surprising because he's the number 1 quarterback. He actually hasn't been the number 1 quarterback in a lot of years, so that's crazy to think that at, past the age of 40, he's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. Kyler Murray is next, and then there's Matthew Stafford thriving in the Rams offense at number 3. Both have been very solid. 2 notes here. Jalen Hurts' rushing ability is turning into big points, and there's no sophomore slump for Joe Burrow so far, so that's why both of them are on this list, and they might move up at some point, especially as buys and everything affect things. Now moving on to running back, no surprise, Derrick Henry, number 1, 869 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. The man is a beast and should have been the number 1 overall pick in the league. Jonathan Taylor is number 2 after number 3 Austin Eckler had a bye. So those 2 will probably switch around as the season progresses. And injuries have mixed up this list a bunch in the last few weeks. Mainly with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb going down with injuries. They were both top 5 running backs at one point. But the biggest surprise for me is Cordarrelle Patterson at number 9. Patterson, of course, has been utilized in many ways on the Falcons offense. And he's a very different asset at the running back position in that he's been used, receiving, passing. He's been doing routes that tight ends do. Like, it's just crazy to think all the different ways he's used. And that could make him a big-time X factor, for Remember the Titans, who's loving the fact that he picked up Patterson off waivers. Moving on to wide receivers, we got Cooper Kupp, number 1 here, with the Rams lining him up everywhere on the field. Whether it's a deep ball or a screen pass, Kupp is making plays with 809 yards and 9 touchdowns. Then there's Jamar Chase, who is one of the Rookie of the Year candidates with his beast performances. Chase has 754 yards and 6 touchdowns and is getting more and more targets. Tyreek Hill is 3rd, surprisingly due to rushing yards, as he has over 60. But the biggest surprises are Mike Williams, who is number 1 for a while, and Marquise Hollywood Brown. Brown isn't a surprise to me. I said in episode 1 that if he gets number 1 wide receiver targets, this could be his breakout year finally. And at number 6, he's proven me right, but he is still a surprise based on rankings. At the tight end position, there really aren't any surprises. at the top. You got Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews first and second with over 70 points. Kittle and Waller are injured, which is why they're probably not up here. But as always, there are so many tight end surprises in the middle of the way. Guys that weren't necessarily drafted. You have Dawson Knox at number 3 with 5 touchdowns, though an injury could hurt him in these rankings. CJ Uzama at number 4 with 5 touchdowns, making big plays on the field. And then you got Kyle Pitts, the rookie, at number 7 with the 3rd most yards by any tight end. That is some crazy stuff to think about. Rookies don't normally light it up in the tight end position. Moving on to kicker, not much to go here. Fairly straightforward. Justin Tucker at the top, 10 points separating 12 players. Who knows how the kicker position will shape out? Most people stream kickers. Moving on to defense, we got the Cardinals number 1 for now, but the Bills were number 1 for most of the season and had a bye last week and are still number 2. So the Bills will probably be number 1 coming up in this next week. The Buccaneers were disappointing until the Bears came to town. Now they're number 3. The biggest surprise has to be the Bengals at number 10. 50 points for the Bengals, and now they face the Jets this week, so expect them to climb higher on this list, maybe crack into the top 5 defenses. Now that we see, where we are so far, how this first half of the season is gone, and who are the players that are stepping up, it's time to look ahead to Week 8. And 3 risky business is away again before closing the season with 5 home games in the final 6 weeks. But the Eastern Territory squad is headed to the Central Territory's Ghost Mountain this week to take on 2-5 Meow Master. Meow Master looks to take a 0 from missing a tight end, but the rest of the team is in line to play, which yields a 60% chance to win. Hurts versus Brady at quarterback, Kamara versus Henry at running back, and the 49ers versus the Steelers defense look to be difference-making spots. 3-4, My Heart Will Go On of the Central Territory is hosting the Western Territory's 4-3, the Stellar Bitches at Steel Shores. After expected moves, the Stellar Bitches have a 54% chance to win here. Both teams have big spots to fill, with Sanders out for the Bitches and Devontae Adams out with COVID for My Heart Will Go On. Swift versus Elliott at running back, and Evans and Ridley versus Johnson and Marvin Jones Jr. look to be big spots at the wide receiver position. The Western Territory's Gal, who is 4-3, travels to the Gateway Islands to take on the Eastern Territory's 3-4 Multiple Scoregasms. Gal needs to coach here again, as the Scoregasms have an 80% chance to win as everything stands now, but Gal has a 54% chance to win if the expected moves are made, namely moving his bye week guys back in. The quarterback matchup, Taylor versus Aaron Jones and the Rams versus the Colts D, intrigue me the most right now. I can't really comment on much else until the moves are made, but this one should be close if Gal coaches. 3-4, remember the Titans of the Eastern Territory hosts the Central Territory's 4-3 low-key Lebowski Thor at Liberty's Watch. Remember, the Titans has a 64% chance to win based on expected moves. Murray versus Burrow is a no-brainer matchup to watch, and Harris and Herbert versus Fournette and Gordon should be big as well. The Bengals defense versus the Buccaneers defense is another big area, and Lebowski Thor probably needs to make up ground somewhere else with the wide receiver / tight end advantage by Remember the Titans. And 5-2, Green Acres of the Eastern Territory travels to Skyward Peaks to take on the Western Territory's 4-3 Uncle Justy. This is listed as a 50-50 toss-up after expected moves. Ellen versus Herbert at quarterback is huge, and Diggs versus Emmanuel Sanders at wide receiver, with Sanders possibly canceling out Ellen TDs, looks to be big as well. The running back advantage is clearly with Green Acres, but the rest of the matchups are too close to call, so touchdowns in unexpected places could be the big difference. And now it is time for
The Game of the Week!
This time we get a fun matchup in the
Game of the Week!
between my 3-4 Great Superior Superb Owls and 3-4 Siamese Dreamcats out of the Western Territory, with a lot on the line. Of course, as an engaged couple, we are also playing for the Golden Cat Rivalry Award as well, which I'm excited to win. So this should be a very fun and competitive matchup, and I get to host at my Central Territory home base, the Great Superior Eye.
Hello. Hope all is well still. This week's match looks to be an interesting battle between legacy members in the league, and the result will be very important for our standings. But before we dive deep into the projections, we have reached the 8th of 12 home bases in our adventure, the Great Superior Eye. In our folklore, the great lighthouse amidst the giant swampy lake has existed throughout time, searching for danger and offering warmth, sight, and protection. Great storms have plagued this area, though. Large waves crash on the beach, and the wind and lightning seem to aim at anything that moves, looking to destroy it or wash it away into the depths of the sea. But that is not all there is to fear here. Whatever or whomever the lighthouse seems to be protecting, the weather is just a minor aspect of the danger. Giant lizard people come from the sea in search of blood, and if you somehow are able to successfully hide, do not accidentally catch their eyes. The blackened pupils have been known to drive people to death by fear alone. But there is one thing that excites me about this nightmarish place. The effect the light from the lighthouse has on both the shadow's influence and on the beasts themselves. The closer you get to the lighthouse, the less wind and rain. The closer you get to the light, the less whispers from the sea. And while you might be surrounded by beasts, if hiding inside the lighthouse, they do not enter. Perhaps they can't. I'm not sure how the light still works. An endless beam that surveys the area. I'm not sure what secrets it's protecting or if it's searching for something. But the way the shadows seem to hide from the brightness of the lighthouse, it makes me think this could be some sort of a weapon. For those here, just remember to not stray too far from the light. Ignore the whispers and never look into the eyes of the beasts that will inevitably surround you. Now back to the match.
The Dreamcats are probably the best 3 and 4 team when you look at some of the tough losses, but this one is going to be a battle with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens defense on bye. My Superb Owls are still a little banged up and are in desperate need of Nick Chubb to return and for Patrick Mahomes to get back to his old ways. But my Owls do come in with a 56.1% chance to win. Mahomes versus Wentz is interesting, with Mahomes' struggles and Wentz looking like he is starting to get comfortable in the Colts offense. A healthy Chubb versus a healthy Cook could go a long way in the running back matchup, as does the Browns versus the Cowboys defense. Don't forget about the Chase Edmonds versus James Conner battle at running back. Conner looks to be the best bet for a touchdown with the Cardinals, but Edmonds looks like the best bet at yards for the Cardinals. Any switch in the other direction could be a big difference maker. But I, of course, are taking 2 keys in this matchup, and it is 2 of the best 3 wide receivers in the league so far. I look at wide receiver Tyreek Hill for my Superb Owls. Usually when Tyreek Hill is doing well, that means that Mahomes is having a monster game, so the two go hand in hand. But Hill has been up and down so far in 2021 with 1 monster game with 3 touchdowns and a few duds as well. He does get a lot of targets usually, but a few teams even took him out of the game, which is very concerning when he goes up against good defensive backs. Still, the Giants have allowed 13 touchdowns to wideouts this year, and Andy Reid is sure to scheme some interesting offensive plays that might also include rushing yards for Hill, who has 60 of them so far this season. Regardless, a big game by Hill is probably needed here, and that brings me to the reason why, and that's the Dreamcats key player. It's the same key player she had back in the Week 5 game of the week, wide receiver Jamar Chase. The reason that he is on a tear lately is because of his great chemistry with Joe Burrow and the fact that the Jets are coming up on his schedule. The Jets have allowed 16 touchdowns to wideouts in 2021, and Chase has had at least 50 yards in every game this year with a touchdown in all but 2. That has translated into a huge boost for the Dreamcats. The biggest boost is the bonus point potential, with his 21.5 yards per catch actually leading the NFL. He also has 754 receiving yards. That's the most by any rookie in NFL history in the first 7 games of a career. And he's done it against some good cornerbacks, including Marlon Humphrey last week of the Ravens. You know, I do want to say he's also from LSU, and all you have to do is look at Justin Jefferson's rookie year last season to know what LSU players can do in their rookie NFL campaigns. That's the show for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we get another major story update as we add to the mythos in our post-apocalyptic sci-fi theme, and we will get more shakeups in the league standings with all the other league information coming as well. Before we go, let's look at the updated power rankings headed into Week 8. Please follow the SunDried Tomatoes YouTube channel and watch content, including original shows like Legends of the Diamond, random reactions, and Brewing the Facts, the SunDried Tomatoes podcast in video form, and other sports, brewing, or entertainment-related videos. You can like the Facebook page and follow me on Instagram at eclectic_yotso for news updates and just to get to know me better.